35 players, 1 fortress, 8 overpowered NPCs, 1 raid boss. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the impossible and solo the raid boss of Ashran, winning an entire epic battleground with just your wits, tenacity, and a bloody massive axe. Hello and welcome to Archvelder's Hacks with Archvelder and his amazing hacks. So Ashran is a 35-man epic battleground. The modern version of Ashran is a resource battle with both factions starting with 175 resources and each kill depleting that total by 1. The faction that wins is the one that reduces their opponent's resources to 0. Now, for various reasons, the Horde have a significant statistical advantage in this battleground. At the same time, this is one of the best sources of honor in the game, so I wanted to see if I could even things up a bit. In this video, I will not be using exploits. There are some very powerful secret world buffs on my Patreon that can do insane DPS on the hardest of raid bosses, but I didn't want to get those buffs fixed by making them public, and I wanted to do this on the level for once. So I started out by trying to kill the multiple mini-bosses that award artifact fragments and other special items scattered around the map, such as Call Up the Ogre and Jeron Emberfall. But while killing these bosses can give your faction a boost, the advantages are not what you would call game-breaking. For this I used a Blood Death Knight, traditionally the strongest class for soloing. However, this gave me some confidence, and I began to wonder if I could tank the Horde end boss, Volrath. If Volrath can be killed, the Alliance win instantly. The resource battle is rendered irrelevant. Venturing into the Horde base one time with the Alliance winning and about to enter Warspear, I managed to get Volrath one-on-one. To my surprise, I was able to tank Volrath quite effectively, till a Paladin eventually came along and stunned me. But this was a real revelation. If the boss could be tanked, he could eventually be killed. Now, Volrath only exposes himself, stop sniggering at the back there, when Alliance are attacking Warspear, when most of the time they've already effectively won even if the team itself doesn't kill Volrath. Also, after a relatively short while, he retreats back inside the base and resets his health if he isn't killed quickly, which a solo tank can't do. So it wasn't going to be viable to kill Volrath when he was out in the open, encouraging as this experience was. Instead, you have the rather more difficult task of killing Volrath while he is inside his fortress. First, it is absolutely essential before you start to do this to pick up a Songfire buff in this area to the right of the Alliance's Mage Tower. The Songflowers give you a 15% damage buff, equivalent to several pieces of conquest gear. Now, this is the approach to reach Volrath without being detected. Use Path of Frost to cross the water here. When you reach the back entrance, notice these Horde peons. They have very low health, very weak attacks, and respawn instantly. You can use them to build up your runic power, which helps enormously, as we'll see, as you enter Volrath's fortress. Now run around the back of the fortress. Be careful at this point not to fall down the rocks, and run right into the fortress. At this point I use Shadow Meld, just in case anyone saw me going in, and wait for a few seconds to establish that they didn't. You might want to buy some invisibility potions to use here. You don't get spotted most of the time, but if you do, that is basically it for the solo attempt. Now, the first time I tried this, I got destroyed in seconds by all the NPCs. The point of entry is the most dangerous moment, as it is very easy to be overwhelmed. If you attack Volrath directly, everything comes at you at once. Not good. So what I do is use my Venthir Door of Shadows ability to get into this alcove. This allows you some control over the situation. We want our back to the wall, The reason is that the guards periodically use knockback, and if they knock you out of range of your target, you can't use Death Strike, and without Death Strike, you are literally dead in seconds. With your back to the wall, knockback has little to no effect and allows you to consistently strike at your target. Now, generally speaking, I will not pull Volrath straight away. The reason is that if you kill the named NPCs first, they stay dead, which reduces the DPS you will be taking. Note that the Warspear gladiators cannot be permanently killed, they instantly respawn. These are the same as the gladiators that spawn at the Warspear bitch, and regular Ashran players will know they often wipe entire teams, such as the power of their mortal strikes, which can one-shot individual players. That gives you some kind of indication of the difficulty involved here. Arguably, the guards are more dangerous than Volrath himself. When you have killed some of the named NPCs, you can try and pull Volrath. Solo, he is not exceptional for a boss, apart from his high health pool and his lethal Blade Twister ability. With eye level 250 plus gear, you should be able to tank Volrath and his gladiators reasonably comfortably with the named NPCs out of the way. The most important thing is to use Marrow Rend to keep your Bone Shield charges up and otherwise spam Heart Strike and Death Strike, using all your cooldowns whenever they are up. If you are at high health, use Blood Boil, as it's worth sacrificing a global for the damage reduction you will get from your Hemostasis talent. More on that in a second. Now, while the mechanics of tanking Volrath aren't exactly trivial to master, there are two absolutely lethal external factors I haven't mentioned yet. The first one is Horde players discovering what you are doing. This happens much less than you might think, but it is a huge problem if they do. If they know what they are doing, and generally speaking they don't, they'll stun you while you are in Volrath's Blade Twister. With multiple players, they can perma-stun you, and that will be it. Most players just stand there and DPS you, which I can actually survive for surprisingly long periods, but eventually enough enemy players will arrive to finish you off. And if you get someone really sharp and creative, then your attempt can be ended instantly. Here's one ingenious method a Warlock used to end our attempt to finish the boss. By far the most dangerous thing, however, is really stupid people on your own team who somehow think you are AFK and report you. 3 people reporting you gets you kicked from the battleground. The only thing that prevents you getting kicked is doing damage to an actual player, which is precisely the thing you want to most avoid. Whatever the reason, this turns what is often a certain win into a certain loss. Here's the full build for this method. Blood Death Knights have a standout legendary item called Memory of the Crimson Rune. This is stupidly overpowered. Look at this list of recommended legendaries for raid boss encounters on Wowhead. It looks like a joke, but this is a legitimate, unironic guide. The legendary is recommended for every single encounter. That's how strong it is. What the legendary does is allow your Dancing Rune weapon ability, which summons a phantom weapon that mirrors all of your attacks, to generate 5 bone shields, which significantly increase your armor. When an enemy attack consumes one of the bone shields, it reduces the cooldown on Dancing Rune weapon by 5 seconds. Additionally, when the rune weapon fades, your rune regeneration rate increases by 40%. In simple terms, this legendary makes you almost invincible while Dancing Rune weapon is up and in its immediate aftermath. Now, we need to be Venthyr to pull this off, because we need the Swarming Mist Covenant ability to regenerate runic power and increase our chance to dodge physical attacks. Worth mentioning here that all of Volrath and his surrounding NPCs use exclusively physical attacks. The Unity legendary effect enhances Swarming Mist by increasing its runic power generation and adding in an explosion effect at Swarming Mist's conclusion, which really helps with area of effect damage. Now for talents, I chose Heartbreaker in the first row. I really benefited from the extra 2 points of runic power generation. You need Death Strike to be used continuously without any delays. Second row, I chose Hemostasis, as this increases the healing of Death Strikes after using Blood Boil. Our healing from Death Strike is the single most important factor to a Death Knight's survivability. Third row, Blood Tap is essential. You need to be able to generate as many runes as possible. Fourth row, Will of the Necropolis, which reduces your damage taken by 30% when your health is below 30%. This will be your most important talent early on because you really need the extra survivability. For level 40 talents, you can choose what you like. I go for Wraithwalk, as the increased mobility can be useful. Your level 45 talent, go for Voracious, which gives you a leech and healing buff after using Death Strike. This basically turns all your DPS abilities into a source of healing, which is essential. The final talent, you must choose Red Thirst, which reduces the cooldown on vampiric blood based on your runic power usage. For PvP talents, the two essential choices are Last Dance, which reduces the cooldown on Dancing Rune Weapon and has a nice synergy with your legendary, and Decomposing Aura. This one is vital as it automatically knocks an amazing 15% of the boss's total health off. That's more than 500,000 HP. The final talent doesn't matter too much, but I go for Death's Echo, as the multiple charges for Death and Decay are useful for fighting multiple opponents. Death Chain is also a good option for much the same reasons. If you've got fantastic gear, you might want to try using Blood for Blood, which increases your heart strike damage by 60%, making for much better DPS. But it also inflicts 3% damage on your Death Knight. So in addition to soloing a raid boss, his NPCs and any horde players that are passing, you also get to damage yourself. That said, if you can somehow take the extra damage, you will be able to kill Volrath much faster.
Ashran is ours. Excellent.
For conduits, I go with General Draven and his 10% damage reduction below 40% health, a fairly obvious option for tanks. You will need the Condensed Animosphere, that's an easy drop from the world boss in Zereth Mortis. You'll also need the Impenetrable Gloom Conduit, which increases dodge chance and your DPS. Swarming Mist is a big part of your DPS. Then choose Hardened Bones for a big damage reduction during Lichborn, Withering Plague for an essential Heart Strike DPS increase, Hold Your Ground for a stamina and healing bonus while standing still, Debilitating Malady for increased Blood Boil damage, and Blunt Bonds for an extra small heal when using Rune Tap. Let me just share with you the most exciting games I was involved in using this technique. In this one, I started out soloing Volrath, and early on it seemed like it wouldn't be necessary, as the Alliance team went ahead comfortably, leading by 46 kills with a score at 80-34. Suddenly the Horde mounted a significant comeback, pulling the deficit back under 20 kills, making my solo attempt suddenly much more important. But two players had worked out what I was doing, as I was taking Volrath's health down below 10%. They stunned me repeatedly, but somehow I just managed to survive. Until finally the players and guards overwhelmed me. But my last damage over time effect managed to kill Volrath also. And that almost certainly won the game, as the Alliance resources were going down fast and apparently the Horde were about to kill our mage. In another game, I managed to take Volrath down to only 200k health before dying, with Alliance massively behind on resources. I gambled on taking a very direct route to the Horde base. Had any of the Horde stunned me, it would have been over. When I got to Warspear, I didn't have time to do the normal trick involving pulling NPCs into the corner and had to attack Volrath directly, which is normally suicidal. But in this case, it was just enough to kill the boss, as the guards were killing me, and the Alliance resources were literally only seconds away from defeat. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys soon.